Exposed at my son's wedding. As a single mom, I discovered the hidden truth behind Charity Case. In the small town of Maplewood, Indiana, all eyes were on Sarah as she anxiously adjusted her dress while preparing for her son Jake's wedding. This was supposed to be the happiest day of their lives, but as a single mother, she could sense the weight of judgment hanging over her. The whispers from the well-to-do neighbors stung. They didn't see the years of sweat and sacrifice she had made, working at the local diner to ensure Jake could walk down the aisle to the woman of his dreams. "Look at that wedding," one woman whispered to her friend, her tone dripping with disdain. "Should be a charity case with the way they're cutting costs." Sarah's heart sank. Did they not understand how proud she was of Jake? He was the first in their family to graduate college, and he was about to start a life with his partner, Emily. But the constant judgment made her question everything. Her mind raced back to sleepless nights worrying about bills, to moments when she'd served coffee at the diner, her thoughts plagued by the fear of letting Jake down. Those sacrifices were supposed to pay off, but all she could feel was the sting of pity masked as concern. "Don't let him get to you," her friends at the diner reminded her. "You raised a good boy. That's what matters." But a part of her hesitated, remembering her father's harsh words about failing to raise a real family. Why was her worth linked to her financial success or lack thereof? As the wedding day approached, she decided to rally the community and put on the best celebration she could. She called in favors and enlisted friends. Together they turned the church into a fairy tale setting, with soft music and vibrant flowers. There was laughter and warmth, a community coming together, which momentarily soothed Sarah's nerves. Yet each ringing laugh pulled at her heart as her confidence wavered. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The church fills, the excitement tangible, as guests settled into their pews. It couldn't go wrong, could it? Just then the giant wooden doors swung open. Sarah's heart stopped. There stood a figure she hadn't seen or thought about in years. Her father, the thorn in her past, materialized in front of everyone. A collective gasp filled the air. Confusion washed across Sarah's face as old memories surged. The abandonment, the shame, the feelings of less than. In that moment her old wounds bled anew. Would confronting him on this day ruin Jake's wedding? But a stifling anger coursed through her, urging her forward. The chance to stand up for herself, for her family, loomed oversized in the air. As Jake waited at the altar, her voice trembled within her. Was she ready to confront the narrative others had crafted and taken control of her own story? The moment you think you've hit rock bottom can often lead to the start of a new beginning. But was she brave enough to face it all? The congregation held its breath, watching her uncertain face, ready to see if this was the moment that would change everything. With her heart racing and emotions swirling, Sarah took a steadying breath, feeling as if the world had slowed around her. Her father stood there, tall and imposing, with an expression that was both familiar and foreign. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, yet nothing prepared her for its reality. Jake turned to look at her, his brow furrowed with concern. He was supposed to be the center of attention, and here she was, stealing the show in the most unexpected way. But for once it didn't matter if she was the star or the bride. All that mattered was standing up for herself. "Dad?" The word slipped out almost like a whisper, yet it rang through the church like a bell. She felt the weight of the congregation's attention on her, weighing her down and lifting her up all at once. "What are you doing here?" His expression flickered, an emotionless mask veiling whatever misgivings he had. "I came to support you. To see my grandson on such a big day." "Support?" The bitterness in her voice tasted sharp. "You haven't been here for years. Your support does not come with strings attached, like showing up on a perfect day just to ruin it." The murmur of the crowd grew, a sea of whispers and gasps. Sarah could feel the judgment shift, the townsfolk leaning closer, uncertain of where this would go but eager to witness whatever drama was unfolding. She had anticipated a scene, but she hadn't fully grasped the vulnerability that would grip her. Sarah, he hesitated. For the first time, she could almost see regret flicker in his eyes, a glimmer of the father she really wanted. But she was done hoping for change that had never come. No, Dad. No more excuses. I don't need your apology today or any other day. I've raised Jake on my own, and he deserves every bit of happiness from here on out. Each word was dripped with the weight of years, each syllable a declaration. Jake, still frozen at the altar, blinked in disbelief. Emily stood beside him, eyes wide, the love she held for Jake now also wrapping around Sarah. This was a family moment, one that Sarah had fought so hard to create. Her father took a step closer, but she held her ground. I'm done being your charity case, or anyone else for that matter. You may think that just because you walked in here today you have a right to my life, to my family's joy. You don't. Tears threatened to fall, but she held them back. She was not fragile today, she was fierce. The room felt alive, the air thick with palpable tension, but also a rush of hope. Maybe this was the moment the story had been leading to all along, the moment she would reclaim her narrative. She glanced at Jake and then at Emily. She saw a mixture of pride and support in their eyes. That alone ignited a fire within her. She could feel each heartbeat underscoring her resolution. Little by little, piece by piece, removing the weight of her past. Now, if you'll excuse me, she said firmly, I have a wedding to go to. With that, she turned to walk back toward the altar, where Jake stood, still processing what had just happened. The congregation released a collective sigh, both shocked and relieved, as if they too had just shed a weight, but the moment was far from over. As she approached Jake, the air shifted again, and with it, an unexpected confrontation loomed. The tension between a mother and son, and the need to revisit something Sarah had buried deep within her. Mom, Jake said softly, what just happened? Sarah opened her mouth to respond, but the words hovered on the tip of her tongue, tangled with thoughts she had kept hidden. How could she explain while balancing on the edge of everything she felt? As Jake searched her eyes for answers, she realized this wasn't just about their family anymore. It was about healing, trust, and facing the truth together. Would they be able to navigate the aftermath of her confrontation? Or would it only deepen and complicate their bond? The church felt charged with everything left unsaid, waiting for the answer to what came next, and Sarah felt that familiar flicker of fear mixed with hope. Sarah met Jake's eyes, and in that moment, she could see the confusion battling with the adoration he held for her. His brows remained furrowed as he searched for clarity, for answers to questions he didn't yet know how to formulate. 1,000 thoughts flashed through her mind, but the main one was simple. What should she say? How could she explain this emotional unrest that had just erupted in the middle of what was meant to be a joyous occasion? Jake, she started, but the words fizzled out. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering between what needed to be said and what could safely remain unsaid. Why didn't you tell me he was coming? Jake's voice was barely above a whisper, but the hurt behind it struck deeply. You know how I feel about him. Sarah's heart twisted. She never wanted Jake to carry the burden of her past, yet here they were. I didn't want you to worry. I thought I could handle it. I thought what? That he'd just show up and everything would be okay? Jake's voice cracked with emotion. This isn't just about you anymore, Mom. It's about me too. He had a point. All those years spent burying the past and shielding Jake from it had taken their toll. She could feel the weight of her protective instincts, clashing with the reality of their shared life. She had made decisions always thinking she was doing what was best for him. But what if she'd been wrong all along? The music shifted in the background, a classic wedding song blending with the murmurs of the assembled crowd. It was as if the world kept moving, but here in this moment time had lost its meaning. Sarah reached for Jake's hand, squeezing it gently. Jake, I've always wanted to protect you. But I know I can't keep hiding from the truth. Not anymore. His expression softened, yet the tension lingered. Look, I understand why you feel the need to keep the past buried. But I'm not a kid anymore. I can handle the truth, whatever that may be. As she stood there, feeling the resolve boil up within her, she realized the little boy he'd once been was giving way to a young man capable of understanding complexity, capable of heartache and healing. Wouldn't he deserve to know everything? I never wanted you to think, she faltered, but this time she pushed herself to break through. I never wanted you to think that you weren't enough, that there hadn't been joy in our life because of him. Jake swallowed, his gaze intense and searching. Mom, we can't keep tiptoeing around him in the past forever. You deserve to have peace. I want you to find peace too. His words hit her like a wave of clarity. It wasn't just her struggle anymore. It was theirs together. Before she could respond, Emily, his bride-to-be, stepped closer, her face reflecting concern and encouragement. Jake's right, she chimed in, her gentle voice carrying weight. Being honest may hurt now, but it will only help you both in the long run. You can't celebrate love while wrestling with ghosts. A wave of warmth washed over Sarah, looking at the two people who represented her future. Could sharing this painful truth really bring them closer? Or would it risk tearing apart the fragile foundation they had built? Okay, Sarah took a deep breath, preparing to dive into uncharted waters. Here's what you didn't know, but before she could continue, a loud crash echoed from the back of the church. Heads turned and gasps ensued. The atmosphere shifted once more. The sudden tension pulled everyone's focus away from Sarah and Jake, leaving her heart pounding with trepidation. What new drama awaited them? Would this unexpected moment derail their attempt to confront the past? Or would it force the truth out into the open once and for all? The uncertainty hung thick in the air, leaving the promise of revelation tantalizingly close yet frustratingly unattainable. The noise cut through the air like a knife, shattering the moment that had just begun to unfold. Sarah's heart raced as she turned to see what had happened. A man stood at the back of the church, a glassy look in his eyes, a few overturned chairs at his feet. The crowd was murmuring, fear and curiosity mixing into a palpable tension. Was it him? Could it really be? Her gut twisted with anxiety. Jake and Emily exchanged worried glances, uncertainty clouding their faces. Is he? No, it can't be. Sarah's mind raced back to memories she had tried so hard to bury. To the man who had once promised her a bright future, but had instead brought chaos into their lives. Mom, stay close, Jake said, shifting his body protectively in front of her, instinctively shielding her from the chaos. But she needed to confront it for herself, for Jake, for all the time she had let her past stake its claim on their life. The man took a shaky step forward, his eyes settling on Sarah. Sarah, he said, voice trembling. I had to. Paul, she breathed, recognition crashing over her like a wave, almost knocking the wind out of her. Jake stiffened beside her, searching for answers with his brow furrowed. Why are you here? She managed to ask, the words slipping out as her emotions tightened in her throat. It was anger mixed with fear, stirring up resentment and disbelief. Honestly, I didn't want to miss this, Paul replied, his eyes darting nervously across the crowd. I've thought a lot about what happened. About us. And I want to apologize. Gasps filled the room, the crowd shifting as the reality of the situation settled over them. Sarah could feel the heat rising to her cheeks as she wrestled with her instinct to run, and the need to confront this man who had haunted her for more than a decade. Apologize? She echoed, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. You think that's enough? Do you think showing up after all these years will make everything okay? Her voice rose, fury bubbling just below the surface. You walked away and left me to pick up the pieces. Your apology won't fix anything. Jake turned to her, concern etched across his face. Mom, do you want to talk to him? He asked, his voice steady but cautious. I don't know, but as she spoke, deep down, she recognized that this could be the moment she'd been afraid of, a confrontation she would have to face not just for herself but for Jake. He needed to see her strength. Sarah, please, Paul urged, stepping forward, desperation creeping into his tone. I never meant to hurt you. I just what? She interrupted. You just vanished, and I had to shape my whole life around your absence. You don't get to come back and play the victim. As her emotions swirled, she suddenly realized that she was no longer that scared girl he had known. She was a mother. A warrior. Jake needed to witness her standing firm, no longer shackled by the past. Mom, Jake said softly, you don't have to do this if you're not ready. But she held her ground, looking at the man who had once caused her so much pain. No, I need to do this. I need to understand why you thought this was okay. But even as she spoke, a nagging fear crept in. What if this moment only unearthed more pain that they couldn't handle? Just then, a flash of movement caught her eye. The wedding guests shifted their attention, whispers rippling through the crowd. Sarah glanced toward Jake, their eyes locking in a moment of understanding. The world felt like it was collapsing around them. Behind Paul, another figure appeared, someone unexpected. The crowd grew silent, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat as her heart plummeted into an ice-cold pit. Is that? What would this new arrival reveal? And how would it affect Sarah's fragile emotional landscape? Would this be a chance for healing or a catastrophic twist that dragged them all deeper into chaos? The air around Sarah thickened, anticipation mixing with dread as she stared at the figure emerging from the shadows. The dim light caught the familiar outline, and her heart stuttered. It was Claire, her sister, wearing a look of shock that mirrored Sarah's own emotions. Claire. Sarah finally managed, her voice almost a whisper. Sarah. I'm sorry I didn't know you'd be here. Claire's words tumbled out, her expression a jumble of surprise and concern. Paul's gaze flickered between the two sisters, confusion painting his features. You know her? Of course I do, Sarah snapped, her emotions swirling out of control. She's my sister. Why are you here, Claire? I came to support Jake, Claire stammered, taking a cautious step closer. I had no idea. When I walked in, it felt like I stumbled into a battlefield. The whispers of the crowd swelled, some straining to catch snippets of the dramatic exchange. Sarah could feel their eyes on her like hot coals. She shifted her focus back to Paul, whose face now showed signs of realization, as if this connection added weight to his previous actions. Is this another one of your calculated moves? Sarah's voice was hard, cutting through the tension. Bringing Claire here, is that it? To gain some sort of sympathy? Sarah, please, Paul pleaded, taking a deep breath. This isn't about manipulation. I came to apologize, and I thought I could make amends. I didn't know Claire was involved. You think you can just show up and everything is forgiven? You don't even understand how much you've wrecked our lives. Jake shifted uneasily beside her, the protective instinct he had shown moments earlier wavering as he watched his mother confront Paul. It was a precarious balance, his young mind trying to make sense of the turmoil unfolding before him. Claire stepped forward, her face softening. Sarah, can we just take a moment? Can we talk about what's happening? Talk? Sarah snapped, each word laced with sarcasm. Talk about how he didn't just walk away but left us to fend for ourselves? How we spent years piecing our lives back together while he did God knows what. Paul's shoulders slumped, and he opened his mouth, the words stuttering on the edge of his lips. I didn't know the extent of what you went through. I have changed. I should have tried harder to reach out, but Sarah wasn't ready to hear it. She could see Claire's look of concern, urging her silently to settle the storm within. You don't get it, do you? I fought for everything. I raised Jake alone. I carried that burden and built my life without you. And now you're here asking for forgiveness. Like it's that simple. In that moment, as her voice echoed against the high church ceilings, she felt the weight of her memories crashing over her. Each moment of vulnerability, sadness and desperation spilled into the open, vulnerable yet raw. Sarah, Claire said gently, her eyes softening. What do you need right now? Just tell me. Beside them, the quiet uncertainty of the crowd hung in the air like a heavy mist. Every eye was watching, waiting for Sarah to break the spell. What would she do with this chance? Would she reach for healing, or let it spiral into chaos? Before she could answer, a loud crash from the back startled the guests. Sarah turned in alarm, her heart skipping as fate turned another corner. What could possibly happen next, and how would it shape the fragile web of relationships before her? As she stood at this crossroads, she realized she was one decision away from either redemption or destruction. The crash echoed through the church, reverberating in the silence that had settled around Sarah like a thick fog. She turned, her heart racing, instinctively reaching for Jake, whose wide eyes mirrored her own fear. The guests shifted uneasily, whispers flickering like flames, igniting a wave of anxiety that washed over the room. Stay close to me, Sarah whispered, pulling Jake tighter against her side. Her mind raced, searching for the source of the noise, praying it wasn't something catastrophic. As the audience's murmurs filled her ears, she caught sight of a figure sprawled on the floor near the back. It was a chair, upturned and abandoned, but it was the man scrambling to regain his footing that drew her attention. Mark, one of Paul's old friends and an uninvited guest, had tripped, his face a mixture of surprise and pain. Sorry about that, he called out, a sheepish grin plastered on his face. The disruption temporarily shifted the room's focus. But it didn't ease the tension between Sarah, Claire, and Paul. Paul's shoulders tensed. I didn't expect Mark here. He wasn't supposed to come. His eyes shifted towards the crowd, betraying a hint of annoyance mixed with discomfort. Right. Just like you didn't expect to run into your family today? Sarah shot back, bitterness coloring her voice. Seems like surprises are your calling card, Paul. Claire, sensing the building conflict, stepped into the line of fire. Can we please just breathe for a second? Everyone is on edge. We're all friends and family here. Friends? Sarah echoed, incredulity pouring from her. You don't get to call it friendship after walking away for years. You have no idea what you turned your back on. The crowd stood silent, the swell of voices tapering into anxious breaths. The weight of what was unsaid hung between them, pushing Sarah to confront the darkness she had bottled up. She glanced at Claire, whose eyes were pleading for understanding. This wasn't just about Paul anymore. It was about them, about the scars they had woven into their story over the years. I fought, she said, her voice cracking. Every single day. For my son, for us, for some semblance of a life. You have no idea how hard it's been. Sarah, Paul began, but she interrupted him. No. You don't get to start your sentences with my name when you've made choices that hurt us. You don't understand what it means to be there and then just leave. The honesty of her pain cut through the chatter, and she felt the crowd lean in, poised to catch each word. Suddenly, a frantic shriek sliced through the charged silence, drawing every gaze to the small altar at the front. It was a woman pushing through the guests with wild eyes, her hands shaking as she pointed. I just saw Jake. You need to come. The name echoed like a bell through the air as Sarah's heart dropped at the sight of her son being called from beyond the chaos. If something had happened to him, a visceral panic gripped her. Stay here, Sarah ordered, her voice rising above the uproar. Jake was already stepping toward the woman, confusion mingling with fear on his young face. Sarah's instinct was to follow him, yet she hesitated, looking back at Claire and then at Paul. What is it? What's wrong? An unsettling wave of unease washed over her as she watched the shadowy figures swirl with urgency. With one sharp inward breath, she knew she had to make a choice. To protect her son at all costs or confront the past that had built a wall around her heart. With the crowd falling into a hushed anticipation, every eye was on her again. What revelation awaited beyond that chaos at the altar? Would the truth about what was unfolding tear them apart, or give them a chance to rebuild? Sarah's heart raced as she tore her gaze away from the frantic woman and back to Jake. He wasn't just her child, he was her lifeline. Every part of her screamed to protect him, yet his innocent curiosity was pulling him towards the unknown. She took a step forward, the weight of Claire's and Paul's stares on her. It felt almost as if they were waiting for her to break. But the urgency in the woman's voice propelled her forward. What do you want with my son? Sarah demanded, her voice firm despite the tremble in her chest. The woman, frantic and shaking, struggled to find her words. I think he found something. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for clarity among the chaos. Found what? Sarah pressed, her pulse echoing in her ears. Not here. It's outside. The woman's hands quivered. Please come quickly. Without another thought, Sarah moved towards Jake, grabbing his hand and pulling him back. No, Jake, stay with me. She felt that sudden hot rush of fear again. Paul stepped in, concern etched on his face. What's going on? He found something outside. Sarah replied, her eyes meeting his. A moment of hesitation flickered in Paul's eyes before he turned his gaze to Claire, who looked equally bewildered. We should follow them. Stick together. But there was no time for deliberation. The woman was already moving toward the exit, a mess of tangled energy and worry. Sarah felt the push of the crowd as they turned to follow, whispers trailing behind like smoke. As they stepped outside, the sun was blazing, a stark contrast to the heavy atmosphere that had settled within the church walls. Shadows swirled around them, and Sarah's heart sank at the thought of what these revelations could bring. Where did you see him? Sarah's voice sliced through the air, urgency propelling her forward. Over there. The woman pointed towards a cluster of trees on the edge of the property, where the shadows created a dark intrigue. He was looking at something in the bushes. The small group hurried over, Sarah's heartbeat thundering in her chest. Jake's small hand felt warm and alive in hers, and yet fear gripped her. As they reached the trees, the woman bent down, her breath coming in ragged gasps. I think It looked like he was helping someone. Helping someone? Sarah echoed, bewilderment pooling in her stomach. What could he possibly be doing? Just then a muffled sound caught her attention. Through the branches she could barely make out the outline of what looked like a figure curled up against the trunk of a tree. Her heart sank further. Jake! She called out, pulling him back, a sense of dread washing over her. Stay with me. But he was already darting forward, curiosity overpowering him. As he moved closer, the figure gathering fragments of battered clothes shifted, bringing a face into view. A hollow stare met her as the wind whispered through the trees. Mom! Jake shouted in surprise. The voice was weak, gravelly. Help please! Sarah's heart plummeted. Reality settled around her like ice. Who was this stranger? The feeling of dread twisted into something heavier. Something far bolsher than she anticipated. Jake, come back! She cried, panic overwhelmed her voice. But it was too late. They had crossed a line into territory she wasn't ready to navigate, where layers of their lives began to unravel. What secrets would this stranger reveal? And how was it possibly connected to the chaos unfolding within the church? As uncertainty gripped her, Sarah steeled herself. Options now existed that she could not ignore. What lay ahead would unearth not only truths about this unexpected encounter, but truths about her, and those she loved. What had Jake stumbled upon that would bind them all together in ways they could never have predicted? Sarah's breath caught in her throat as Jake approached the figure. She could see the patchwork of dirt-stained clothes, the kind that told stories of hardship. Somehow the stranger's hollow gaze clung to her like a dark weight, and the world around them faded to a dull hum. Jake, stop! She called again, fear coiling tighter in her chest. She moved forward, yanking him back just as he reached the figure's side. Her hands gripped his arms, steadying him but trembling herself. Mom, look! Jake pointed, his eyes wide with innocence and concern. They need help. The woman from the church crouched down beside them, the urgency in her voice turning to mild panic. This is not just anyone. You shouldn't be here. What do you mean? Sarah's voice faltered. Who is this person? What happened? The figure shifted slightly, revealing a face lined with pain and despair. Please, water, I just need to not be alone. It was barely a whisper. Each word a struggle. Determination swirled with dread inside Sarah. She exchanged glances with Paul and Claire, who hovered nearby, uncertainty marking their faces, mirroring her own rising panic. Should they call for help? Would it even matter? Stay here, Claire urged, taking one hesitant step towards Sarah. We can't just leave them. The woman nodded, her expression frantic but resolute. We have to help. They might know things we need to know. Know about what? Paul pressed, the air thick with unspoken worries. Jake, still focused on the stranger, squatted down beside them, wide-eyed and unguarded. I want to help. Right, Mom? The weight of his question hung heavy in the air. Sarah felt the tug-of-war within her, the instinct to shield him pulling against the push of compassion. Taking a deep breath, she knelt beside Jake. Okay, but we do this carefully. They scanned the area for any sign of danger. The nearby trees swayed gently, shadows dancing eerily in the golden sunlight. She had never felt so exposed. What's your name? Sarah asked softly, reaching out a hand. Lena, the figure murmured, eyes flickering with a glint of hope. I didn't mean to disturb. Just lost. I thought I heard voices but I don't know where to go. Lena, Sarah repeated, her heart aching with each syllable. What happened to you? As Lena spoke, Sarah slowly understood the despair hiding behind her words. She shared snippets of her story, of choices made in desperation, of being swept away by storms much larger than her own. For a fleeting moment, it felt as if Lena's pain wrapped around their little group in an invisible thread, binding them together in shared vulnerability. Palpable silence filled the air as Lena's story unfolded, stirring empathy within them, and Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something dark and intricate was hidden beneath the surface. They weren't there just to help. They were piecing together her life and by extension, perhaps, their own. We need to get you out of here, Sarah finally said, her voice steadying. But we need to stay safe. Can you stand? I think so, Lena replied, pushing herself up slowly, her breath hitching. Just then, a siren blasted in the distance, its wail piercing the heavy air. sending Sarah's heart racing again. What's coming? She turned instinctively to her son, watching him process the fear and complexity of the moment. The world they both understood was shifting, and amid the chaos, she felt a pang of unease. Mom, Jake whispered, shivering slightly. What if it gets worse? In that instant, the reality that they were stepping deeper into darkness hit her. The pieces of the puzzle began to connect, revealing a bigger picture at work. Then we prepare for it together, she reassured him, though her voice was shaky. What lay ahead was uncertain, but the invisible thread binding them all together was drawing tighter, urging them towards a truth yet uncovered. What revelation awaited them behind the fear? The siren was only the beginning. Sarah's heart raced as the wail of the siren faded into the distance, replaced by a heavy silence that felt thick enough to slice through. Jake's small hand clutched hers tightly, his warmth a grounding presence in the swirling storm of emotions. She could feel the adrenaline coursing through her, sharp and demanding, pushing her to act. Lena, can you walk? Sarah asked, her voice stronger now, filled with a sense of purpose. She shifted forward, gently helping Lena to her feet. The woman's body trembled with indecision, but the light in her eyes sparked with determination at Sarah's touch. I don't know where to go, Lena mumbled, glancing hesitantly at the path leading away, the tangled underbrush seeming to move toward them as if whispering secrets. Then we'll figure it out together, Sarah said, feeling the bond between them grow, threading through their chaos. She looked back at Paul and Claire, who stood watch like sentinels, their concern palpable. Can you keep an eye out for anything unusual? Paul nodded, his brow furrowed with concern, while Claire reached out, her hand clasping Jake's shoulder reassuringly. The adults were playing their parts, but Sarah knew that this moment, this choice, was rooted deeply in her sentiment for Jake and now for Lena. Just as they started moving, the shadows barely lifting from Lena's past, Sarah felt the tremor in her heart again. What if someone comes looking for her? She wondered, the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. What if Lena had people chasing her? That's not our concern right now, Claire replied softly, almost sensing Sarah's hesitation. We need to help her. We can't turn away. They took cautious steps, Lena leaning slightly against Sarah for support, her breath uneven but reassuringly steady. The forest path twisted ahead, branches arching low as if to protect their fragile group from prying eyes. Each snap of a twig beneath their feet seemed to echo the fear bubbling just below the surface. I felt so alone, Lena said suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. When it all fell apart, I didn't know where to turn. No one was there. The admission hung in the air like a lament, pulling at Sarah's heartstrings. We're here, Sarah said, her grip on Jake tightening. You're not alone anymore. But as they moved further into the woods, the horizon darkened, creeping shadows dancing just out of sight. Jake tugged her hand, eyes wide. Mom, I heard something over there. He pointed towards a thicket where the light struggled to shine through. What if it's something bad? Sarah's mind raced. The ever-looming danger whispered doubt in her heart. She brushed Jake's hair back, laying her palm gently to his cheek. Stay close to me. A rustle broke the baited silence. Sarah turned, tension tightening every fiber of her being. In that moment, she held her breath, praying it wasn't more trouble, praying it wasn't a reflection of the darkness they were trying to escape. Can you stand? Sarah asked, urging Lena to steady herself. But before Lena could respond, a loud shout erupted from the darkness. Hey, you there! Fear skittered up Sarah's spine. Jake squeezed her hand, his innocent trust now tinged with uncertainty. The shout rang again, this time closer, the voice slicing through the tranquility of the woods like a whip. We know you're there. Show yourselves. Panic surged within Sarah as she glanced back at her small group. In Lena's haunted eyes she could see the undeniable truth. This conflict wasn't over yet. They had stumbled into a thread that could unravel everything. Run! Sarah commanded, her instincts kicking in, knowing deep down that whatever lay ahead held secrets yearning to be uncovered. What had Lena been running from? And would they all make it out together? Adrenaline filled the air, a storm brewing. In that flash of uncertainty, the path ahead blurred, revealing more than just the physical darkness encroaching upon them. Would they discover the truth that had haunted Lena and in turn, themselves before it was too late? Fear wrapped around Sarah like a thick fog as she pushed forward, pulling Jake close. The urgency of the moment whipped through her like cold wind, slicing into the hearts of every person in their small group. Lena staggered beside her, vulnerability spilling from her eyes, and Sarah felt their shared connection deepen even more in the face of danger. "Stay close," she whispered fiercely, meeting Jake's wide gaze. "No matter what, we stick together." They moved toward the edge of the woods, Sarah leading them like a lighthouse through the storm, determined to shield her son from the chaos swirling in their lives. "Hey!" The shout rang again, a rough voice coming from the shadows. "You can't hide forever." Panic flooded Sarah's veins. She felt Jake squeeze her hand with a grip tighter than a vice. "Mom, what if they find us?" His innocent fear gnawed at her stomach. "They won T," she whispered fiercely, her voice shaking with determination. "We won T, let them." Her heart raced ahead, charging toward an escape that awaited just behind the tree line ahead. They broke through the last batch of foliage, finding themselves in a clearing bathed in bright sunlight, the colors vibrant and jarring compared to the gloom behind them. There was a rawness to the air that filled Sarah with resolve. This was their moment, their chance to reclaim the life they had fought so hard to build. "Do you hear them?" Lena's voice trembled beside her, eyes darting as if the shadowy presence threatened to close in. "They're still in the woods," Sarah assured her quickly. "We need to keep moving." Then she turned to Jake, crouching down to meet his gaze. "Listen to me, buddy. No matter what happens next, I need you to stay close. If you see an opening, don't hesitate, run straight for it." Jake nodded, fear and trust mingling in his soft features. As they took a few tentative steps forward, the woods fell silent. The heavy air shifted, and the world around them felt electric with possibility. Sarah led Lena by the hand, both of them fueled by the unyielding desire to move past their burdens. They approached the edge of the clearing, which dipped into an old path. "This way," Sarah urged, pointing determinedly forward. Suddenly, a rustle shattered the silence. Sarah's heart raced as three figures burst into the clearing from the woods, eyes wild, bodies tense. "Stop!" one yelled, a man with scruffy hair and worn clothes, arms outstretched as if he were ready to tackle them. Jake flinched and Sarah's protective instincts surged like a roaring tide. "Run!" she shouted, her voice reaching a fever pitch as she fired through the air. They sprinted, each beat of Sarah's heart hammering with the rhythm of adrenaline. The ground felt unsteady beneath her, but she pushed ahead, pulling Jake and Lena along until the path forked. "Which way?" Jake panted, fear flickering in his eyes. "Left," Sarah shouted. "We head deeper into the brush." They took off and her heart pounded, a furious beat of determination. Behind them the shouts emerged again, but they felt distant now, echoes of the past she was ready to leave behind. This was a moment of reclaiming, a moment fueled by the strength she finally felt within her. Then ahead of them, a glimmering light peeked through the trees. The path opened to a small creek, sunlight bouncing off the water. It looked pure, peaceful. "See the water? We can hide there," Sarah urged, her voice sharper with the urgency of the moment, and they darted forward, slipping quietly along the bank. Once they reached the water's edge, Sarah crouched down, catching her breath as Lena sank to the ground beside her. Jake splashed the water, shivering but laughing at the cool touch. Felt like freedom. Sarah met Lena's gaze, and in that moment of shared relief, she saw the shadows begin to fade. "We've got time. We just need a plan." Breathing deeply, Lena nodded, her expression softening. "I think I need to tell you everything." The trust building amongst them flickered to life, binding their ragged hearts. They had reached a sanctuary. With the threat pushed back for the moment, the weight of the past could finally be addressed. "Good," Sarah said warmly, "because I'm ready to hear your truth. And I'll share mine too. No more running. Just healing." The air felt clearer as they began to share, peeling back the layers of their pain and fear. Sarah found herself letting go of burdens she thought would weigh her down forever. For Jake, hope breathed around them, a chance to understand family in a new way. This was not just about confronting the past, but forging a future built on love, strength, and honesty. It was the start of something beautiful, a team forged by trials, a family made anew. And as Lena spoke, Sarah felt the sun warming her heart, illuminating a path toward renewal. As the light poured down, a new chapter awaited them, filled with promise. Don't wait another moment. You need to subscribe now to catch more powerful stories like this. Leave a like now to help our community grow and thrive. I want to hear your feelings about this inspiring ending. Comment below. And don't forget to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this transformation. Act now, your support matters.